Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community, is brought to you by Handy Quilter, designed by a quilter for quilters. Sulky, express yourself with Sulky and create with confidence. Brother, it's so easy with Brother at your side. And Quilt Cut, easy fabric cutting for quilters.
Hello and welcome to Quilters Newsletter TV, the quilters community. We're at the Houston International Quilt Market with Jody Davis from the Quilt Alliance. The Quilt Alliance has the main mission of preserving quilt stories. Jody, you want to tell us a little bit more about it?
Sure. You know, I'm on the board of directors of the Quilt Alliance, and when I was asked by Meg Cox to be on it, I didn't know what the Quilt Alliance did. And back then it was called the Alliance for American Quilts, but we kind of updated our name and our logo recently. I'm real proud of our logo. And history can be so boring and so inaccessible, but that's one of the wonderful things that the Quilt Alliance does. It makes our history accessible in a number of ways. One is through our project called the Quilt Index, which, believe it or not, there are over 50,000 quilts on the internet that you can go look at for free.
Wow.
One of the things they did, do you know are you familiar with the state documentation projects?
Yes.
I'm from Rhode Island, and I don't know how many quilts were photographed, and people brought their quilts in, and everything was written down, whatever we knew, the maker, whether it was grandma or what town it was from and everything. And then all this was recorded and put away somewhere, or in a book that nobody has, or you can't get. Well, now most of those documentation projects are online on the Quilt Index, on the Alliance, the Quilt Alliance's website. So in other words, if you're about to make a double wedding ring quilt, and you say, well, you know, I don't know, what do I want to do with it? What colors do I want to use? Could be a block that you could put on point to it. How do I want to set it? Working on a quilt, what do I want to do for a border? You can look up that quilt, whatever block it is, and you can see all these examples. Or if you're like from Rhode Island and you want to know about some quilts from Rhode Island, you can search for Rhode Island. You can search by quilt maker, and there are over 50,000 records.
That's an amazing number, isn't it?
Isn't it? And then some of them, the newer ones where the resolution of the photograph is good, you can go in and zoom and really look in detail and see the quilting and everything. And what amazes me going in there is how you think mothballs, history, old quilts, and these aren't all old quilts, but some of these old quilts are so modern. And I think, anybody in the modern quilt movement could have made something like that. So it's fascinating. You can just spend hours on there. So that's one of the things we do. And that's more what you think of as a nonprofit covering the history of quilting. But the thing that we do that I think really gets me excited beyond having all those quilts accessible is we are preserving the stories of quilt makers, as you say. And one of the projects was Quilt Treasures, which is documentaries like of Jean Ray Lowry, someone that we all who have been in quilting for a long time know and love, and it meant so much to quilting. And so when Quilt Treasures is like a documentary almost of the person. So we have that, but then we have a project called Quilters Save Our Stories. And that can be any quilter, whether it's somebody known like you, or somebody in your guild that nobody knows except we know in our little town. Right. And it's an oral history. So what happens is an interviewer, and this can be anybody, anyone can do it, you can volunteer, an interviewer sits down and interviews this person and records it. And you start with your touchstone quilt, whatever is your most important quilt to you, and you would say, interview me if you're the interviewer, and you ask me all these questions. And we have set questions, but you can ask other questions too. And it is a documentary of that person, really. It's documenting their life as a quilt maker just through that interview with that touchstone quilt to sort of start it and get it going. And these all end up in the Library of Congress. And then you can go on the Quilt Alliance website and read them and see them. It's really cool.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Isn't that neat?
Yeah.
And we have, I can't remember what the number is, but well over 1,000 now. And you can go see them anytime. And the project I'm really excited about started from the Quilters Save Our Stories project. That's kind of formal. It's going to go in the Library of Congress, and it's about that quilt maker and his or her quilts with their touchstone quilt. But what happens when you travel? When you are coming here to Houston this week, and you sit down on a plane, and somebody says, "So what are you off to do? What happens?"
And when I tell them what my job is, they start telling me the story of the major quilt maker in their life.
Yes. Everybody has somehow touched it seems.
Yes.
And so there are a lot of those stories. Like you might have Aunt Mary's quilt, or anybody might have Aunt Mary's quilt, and they want to tell that story. And so that's what Go Tell It at the Quilt Show is about. Our director, our executive director, Amy Milne, came up with the idea, let it just be like 3-minute little videos that anybody can do anywhere for people to give them the venue to tell that story. So we've just started doing it in the last few months, and I have absolutely loved it, because you think after doing this a while, I'm like, oh yeah, another quilt story. Every time, it's like, wow, the things that people come up with.
Yes.
So really, our little thing is one person, one quilt, one story, 3 minutes, another story saved. That's our little,
Yes.
to describe it, and that's what it is. So that's really fun, because anyone, whether they made the quilt or not, can tell the story.
Right.
So that's our newest program, which is
Okay,
really
that's
cool.
wonderful.
Isn't it? Isn't
It is.
So the question is, how can you participate? And we have an annual contest, and there's always a different theme, and this year is our 20th anniversary, believe it or not. And so the theme is 20.
Okay.
And the quilt needs to be 20 by 20, so it's wide open. And those quilts are always auctioned starting in November on eBay, so that's where we raise a lot of money.
Right.
But anyone can be part of that, and the quilts just are getting better and better
Yes.
every year. Yep. And another way to participate is to come to one of our events. Every year we have an event in New York City called Quilters Take Manhattan. This will be our 3rd year coming up
Yes.
in 2013. And we're getting pretty good at that and having a whole lot of fun. And so
Good.
we have all sorts of things going on, and we're going to sort of make it go a little longer this time, so there'll be other events within Manhattan. So that's really fun to do. So you see, Lori, why I'm so excited about the Quilt Alliance?
I do. If we wanted to sign up, what would we need to do?
Just go to quiltalliance.org, and you can become a member for as little as $25. You know, the thing is that all of that, the Quilt Index, the Quilters Save Our Stories, Quilt Treasures, everything that we do is for free online. But we really, you know, preserving our stories as quilters is so important to us. I mean, that's what's so wonderful about quilting, is the stories, you know, the relationships. It's
that's
so
right.
amazing. And so, support us. You ready? Can I sign
I
you up?
am.
And I'll get you a pin, you get a lapel.
Oh, awesome. Thank you for joining us,
Thank
Jody.
you so
We
much.
appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Hope you enjoyed it.
Quilters Newsletter TV, the quilters community, is brought to you by Handy Quilter, designed by a quilter for quilters. Sulky, express yourself with Sulky and create with confidence. Brother, it's so easy with Brother at your side. And Quilt Cut, easy fabric cutting for quilters.